Sean here. Let's talk about a few things. First, here's what's going to happen with Chance. This has to happen or no progress can be made. When you are dealing with somebody who's detached from reality, what you need to do is establish a baseline, some kind of anchor, some place that you can bring them back to when they start to stray, like a home base. If you're talking to Cyraxx, God help you. If you're talking to Chance, and he starts going off about William and Inward Boy and how much money he's lost and he should be a millionaire, there has to be a baseline. And we've talked about some of the crap that we would have to get through to him on. But the baseline for Cyraxx it's confusing to me because honestly, I have no idea exactly what it should be. I know that it's easy to say it should be reality. It should be his current situation. You would have to convince him of who he really is. Now, you can't throw all the bad parts in there. You can't just say you're a pedo and everything else. You would have to get him to see his situation as a human being who's currently living in an attic, in a house. You have to word it like this or he won't make it. In a house that's being paid for by somebody else. You're a resident in a house that you don't contribute to, and if something happened, you could be expelled from that house. Maybe then you could work around that. So let's say we did make that Chance's home, I don't even want to say home base. Let's just call it the attic. And Chance starts to stray, and he starts to go off about goblin tales or something on Adult Swim. You could ask him, Chance, how does that affect the person? And then you go through what you described. And you might even have it on a piece of paper. You could point, like sometimes people with visual, auditory cues, you tap the piece of paper to where the words are and you say, how does that affect that person right there? Well, money, and you can't really just say, hold it right there. You kind of have to let him get the words out. Let him get it out, but Chance, he'll go off on a tangent. You'll just have to pick the right time and say, look, this is your current situation. This is who you are right now, not who you want to be. That's an entirely different baseline. So let me just cover that real quick. You would have the beginning where you write down who he currently is. Then you'd have the end where you'd write down what he wants to be, who he wants to be. Not an influencer or anything like that, but autonomous from everyone else. Have him be right there. So you could say, Chance, how does this touch who he is right now? And how is that going to affect and then touch whoever it is he says he wants to be? Living on his own, being able to own his own car maybe, or at least buy his own food. Here's another question you should ask. You have to ask him for a baseline, who do you want in your life? So, bear with me here. The baseline, as we talked about, who he currently is, then who he wants to be. Now, you can take both of those and you have to put a person in the middle. Who do you want to be in the near future? A person with friends? Someone living by themselves? What kind of experiences does that person What kind of experience are you as that person looking for? We could try the other crap that I've talked about, writing everything down, but this is how you smack him over the head and bring him back. So in between steps 1 and 2, you've got, say, 1A. And 1A is the person and what they need to be doing to get to step 2. You would have to explain to him that the guy at step 1 has to change. Because if he doesn't change, if he stays static, if he doesn't do anything, he's not moving forward at all. You've established the baseline. Now you're establishing what point he's going to be stuck at. So if who he wants to be in the near future is a guy with a job, with a girl who isn't living off anybody else and has complete freedom, he's going to have to describe what the guy at step 1, that's who he is, needs to be doing, but you're going to word it this way. The guy at this stage, not you at this stage, because if it's him, remember, this is Cyraxx. If you get him to talk about what he needs to be doing or he should be doing, you're going to get William and Inward Boy and all the garbage. But if you have him on the outside, looking in, talking about this guy, using that terminology, this guy right here at step 1, what should he be doing in between steps 1 and 2? Chance, how would you get that guy from step 1 to step 2? And then he would have to talk about, well, you'd have to go slow. He'd have to apply for jobs. You could even stress, Chance, the guy at step 1, he doesn't have to give up his dreams. He just has to move forward. That's the whole point, is that guy's got to move forward, because right now he's just staying there. He's stagnant, stale. And you want to get this guy that you think has potential, you want to get him to step 2. So how's he going to get a girl? Is he going to meet her online? Or is he actually going to step outside of his comfort zone? I'd be curious to know his answer. And you might interject, give some advice, but really in this exercise, you want him to tell you what's going to happen. So he tells you what he's going to do to get to step 2, and you're going to do the same thing from step 2 to step 3. You're going to talk about the guy who now has income. It may not be a lot, but he's got income. He's either living with roommates, depending on what he said, right after step 1, between step 1 and step 2, whatever that guy's doing. If he gets to step 2 and that's what he wanted, a roommate and a girl and whatever else, he's going to have to figure out, now, with what you just told me, Chance, is your step 3, that's the final one, is it still the same? Or now that you have a girlfriend and you have your own job and you're living on your own, or maybe you have roommates, is that still what you want? Imagine, I know this is complicated, just bear with me. Tell him, imagine that guy right there at step 2. Imagine he's happy. He's feeling happy. And he's not thinking about anything else about how good, except how good his life is, right there at step 2. Could it be good enough where he starts to build a life off of that? Or does this guy at step 2, I know it's confusing, just hear me out, or does the guy at step 2 give all of that up to go to step 3 and try to be famous and make it in the music industry? So what you've done is taken him from step 1, who he is, step 1A, which is the one, we talked about, what's that guy doing to get to step 2? Step 2, that guy is here. Is he happy? We think he's happy. He's got some things going on. He's living the dream. Is he going to give all of that up? And here's where he has to make a decision. Let's call it step 2A and step 2B. Step 2A is give everything up. You're going to write that down. Give everything up, and this guy's going to be doing whatever it is to get to step 3. 2B, God, I'm so sorry. 2B, this guy is going to keep all of that, build on it, and then maybe step 3 turns into getting a house, having kids. Now, none of this is really going to happen, but getting a house, having kids. If you can point him in that direction, Chance has a much better shot at being semi-normal. But we all know he's going to take 2A. He's going to give it all up. He's going to shoot for his dreams. Because the reality is, you cannot serve 2 masters. And this is where you might have to be a little harsh. Chance, if you want this dream, you're going to be making that dream for yourself. You can't possibly ask the people at step 2 to just sit there and wait. Because, and this is important, because they have their own step 3s. And if you're alone, Chance, you can go for your own step 3, rich and famous, but you won't have anybody there to support you. You're not going to be there to support them for their step 3, their final goal. So you've separated, you've given all of that up. If you can find a happy medium in there, and you can both discover shared goals, common goals, that house, the kids, everything, you can work together and you can make it there. I hope you guys are still with me. I know it's a little complicated. The whole thing is complicated. Going from who he is, who the person would have to be to get him to step 2, which is on his own, with money and a job and everything. Then making him decide from step 2, what do I want to do? Ditch everything that guy from step 1 to step 2 did, and now become a different guy. And this is where I hope it gets through. And now become a different guy to get from step 2 to step 3, which is to ditch everything. Because the guy you became between step 1 and step 2 could go from step 2 to step 3. You could maintain that guy, and that guy's building momentum, and that guy has a vision, and that guy's created a life. But if you choose 2A, which was to try to be rich and famous and a content creator and everything else, you're basically erasing everything you did from step 1 to step 2. And you are now starting over, and you're becoming a completely different person without a support system. Talking to him like that from a third person, making him understand that is how life works, that you are who you are. But you have to become something better to make something better of yourself. You can't be a better person and never change. You can't still be the goblin in the attic and expect to suddenly just be a successful human being. And you can't become a successful human being with a life and then give all of that up and go back to being step 1 goblin, which is someone who has nothing, who's just a goblin in a residence he doesn't pay any money for, and then immediately jump to step 3, which is to be rich and famous and powerful without ever having put in any real work and changed at all. That is what a fucking baseline is. If Chance did that exercise with someone who knew what they were doing, if it was a sobering experience for him, and he wasn't allowed to just talk and say, well, yeah, William, an N-word boy. Nope, that's not what we're talking about. I'm asking you, what does that guy right there need to be doing to get from step 1 to step 2? Now, and then you break it down again with the fork in the road. Do you keep going with this good life that you built, with the people in it that you've managed to, I don't want to say this, but you've managed to con into being some kind of friends, and maybe some blind, deaf woman with no sense of touch fell in love with you? Because God knows a blind woman feeling your face would send her running the other way. Give up all of that hard work you put in to selfishly chase a dream that only happens for about 0.01% or something, whatever it is, to achieve their lifelong dream of being rich, famous, and powerful. I mean, that whole thing, that discussion with him, it should be heavy. It should make him think. It should make him want to be a better person. It should help him understand what change is and how to get to your ultimate goal, and what your ultimate goal should probably be, and to stress that you have one life. You don't get to try to go to stage 3 and then go all the way back to step 1 again, and then you go all the way back to try to make it big in the music industry when you haven't even gotten past stage 1. I mean, the amount of time it would take to get to being rich, famous, and powerful, getting up to that point where you have an actual shot and then failing to get another shot at that is even more rare. So I don't know. This is just me rambling about baselines and about how you'd have to handle this with Chance. He drives me freaking insane. Somebody needs to get a hold of him, and soon. Alright, I'm done rambling. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Hey, into the next century.